Hey there. Tonight we're traveling back in time, far beyond dynasties and emperors, to the dust, blood, and silence between the stones of one of humanity's greatest monuments. You know the Wall. It winds across mountaintops and deserts like the spine of a sleeping giant. But behind each brick, there's a body. And behind each tower, 1,000 silent stories no one wanted to remember. This isn't a tale of glory or triumph. It's one of hunger, cold, forgotten names, and a wall that never stopped growing. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and let yourself sink into the story. The year is somewhere around 220 BC. The Qin dynasty has just unified the fractured kingdoms of China. You stand in a narrow valley in the empire's north, where the air smells like clay and sweat. You don't know the date. No one does. But you know the work. You were once someone, a son, a farmer, a speaker of your dialect, a man who could walk where he wished. Now you are none of those things. You are here. You are breathing, barely. You are a shape in the dirt among 1,000 others. Your tunic indistinguishable from the mud it drags through. You had a name, but no one has said it in weeks. If someone asked who you are, you would not know what to answer. The wall does not ask questions, and you do not offer answers. You exist to lift, to carry, to place, and then do it again. You are not a man anymore. You are a tool, a weight, a body for the wall. It begins in your back, a numbness, then a throb, then something worse, the ache that comes from knowing this will not stop. You lift stones that slice your palms open, though your hands no longer sting. Pain has faded into permanence. The blood has mixed with the dust and become part of your skin. Every movement is mechanical. Every command barked. Every breath shallow. You don't look at the sky anymore. It's just a light that hurts. You look at the legs in front of you, and the stones beside you, and the slope ahead that you will walk up again, and again, and again. Food is a paste of something, grain perhaps, or bean husk, and you eat it without chewing. Water comes in bowls you pass from mouth to mouth. Sometimes it's warm. Sometimes it tastes like copper. It doesn't matter. You swallow, because if you don't, someone else will take it. You sleep on the ground. Not near it, on it. Your ribs press against packed earth. You wrap your arms around your knees to keep warm, because your blanket was traded for dried meat 2 weeks ago. The men next to you snore, or cough, or moan. You do not remember the face of your mother. You dream of fields, but they are blank now, without trees or wind. In the morning, you don't wake so much as rise. Your body rises. Your mind follows eventually. You learn not to think. Thought slows you down. Thought makes you remember. And remembering makes your chest hurt in ways work can't fix. So you move forward. You find your place. You lift the next stone. You avoid the eyes of the overseer. You keep your head low and your hands steady. When someone falls, you do not stop to help. When someone is dragged away, you do not ask where. You do not even look. You look only at your stone. They say it's for defense, that the wall will keep out the northern tribes, that we are building for the empire. But you don't see an empire. You see a line of broken men. You see shovels with handles slick from wear. You see piles of rock that seem to grow no smaller no matter how many you move. And the wall, it doesn't end. You walk for days and never reach the edge. Some say it touches the sea. Some say it touches the sky. You believe both. It might as well. What else could consume this many men and still demand more? You've seen men with no fingers still laying mortar. You've seen boys, younger than your nephew, hauling wood until their knees give. You've seen eyes go dull in faces still chewing. The wall does not feed on stone alone. It wants more. It takes you from the inside out. And every time you think you've reached your limit, you find that your body still moves, still carries, still obeys. It surprises you. Not because it endures, but because it doesn't ask your permission. And so you are here. You are not a soldier. You are not a craftsman. You are not a prisoner, not officially, but neither are you free. You came because you had no choice. Because your village needed fewer mouths. Because someone made a mistake and you could not afford to pay. You are one of many, and you are all the same now. Skin darkened by sun, eyes sunken by time, shoulders bent not from burden, but from surrender. The wall grows and you shrink. The wall becomes history and you become dust. You do not expect to leave. You do not expect to be remembered. But still, you wake. Still, you lift. Still, you walk in step with others whose names you never learned. There is no end to this, only continuation, only stone on stone, body beside body, and breath while it lasts. Hunger wakes you before the sun does. It isn't the sharp kind, not anymore. That passed weeks ago. Now it's dull and wide like a fog that wraps itself around your middle and tightens slowly. Your stomach doesn't growl so much as hum, a quiet signal that your body is still alive and still unsatisfied. You open your eyes, but nothing changes. It's the same dark gray as when they were closed. You lie there for a while, curled inward, listening to the rustling bodies around you. Some men shift, others cough. A few mutter in their sleep. But most are silent, the way you are, conserving even breath. You used to dream of food, but your mind has stopped offering hope. Now, your first thought is not rice or broth. It is the weight of your own limbs and whether you can move them. The ache in your belly is the first thing you recognize each morning. It grounds you. It reminds you that you have not yet died. When food comes, it's in a pot the size of a child, a single pot for a line of dozens. You don't know what's in it, and you've stopped asking. It has the consistency of old porridge and the color of river mud. Sometimes there's something hard in it. Grain, maybe. Sometimes there's a film of oil on top, and that's a good day. You wait your turn with the others, bowl in hand if you still have one. If not, your hands will do. There is no talking. No one jokes. No one complains. Complaints waste energy, and the men who complain tend to disappear. You take your scoop, you squat, and you eat slowly, not to savor it, but to make it last. One mouthful, then another. You chew only when absolutely necessary. Swallowing is more efficient. It's over in a minute. And then the hunger returns, unbothered by the interruption. You work on an empty stomach, always. You don't remember the last time you felt full. That sensation, satisfaction, belongs to another life, maybe to another person. Now, even the thought of eating fills you with something close to grief. You lift stones with arms that shake. You carry loads that seem impossible until you move them. And when the day grows hot, your body burns through what little you've managed to keep. You feel it leave you, minute by minute. The weakness settles in your legs first, then behind your eyes, then in your chest, like a second heartbeat made of absence. You drink when allowed, But water only tricks the belly for so long. After a few hours, the hunger is back in full, heavier, deeper, angrier. You start to understand why men steal, why they fight over crusts, why they lick empty bowls clean and scrape their fingers with their teeth, not because they are desperate, but because they are still human. And humans do not surrender to emptiness quietly. As night falls, you feel lightheaded, not from rest, but from depletion. The walk back to the camp is the worst part. Your legs are jelly, but still you walk. You don't look around. You don't speak. You focus on each step, each breath. Each man is a flickering shape beside you. No one holds anyone else up. If someone collapses, they are carried only if they are important. And no one here is important. You reach your spot. You sit, and you wait for the evening portion. It's smaller than the mornings. The pot seems shallower each day. Someone once whispered that the rations are being stolen, sold off to towns nearby. No one knows for sure. No one dares to prove it. You take what you're given. If you're lucky, your hands don't shake too much. If you're unlucky, you spill and cry quietly while someone else licks the ground. Hunger makes you less of a person. It erases manners. It erases mercy. When you lie down, your belly curls in on itself like a dying flame. And just before sleep takes you, your final thought is always the same. You are not full. You have not been full in a very long time. And still, tomorrow, you will wake, and hunger will be waiting. The wall never stops growing, even when the wind howls loud enough to drown out commands, even when the rain turns the earth into sludge, even when another man drops face first onto the path and doesn't rise. Still, the wall rises, stone by stone, breath by breath. You saw it happen for the first time your second week here. A boy, maybe 16, collapsed while hauling a basket of mortar. His legs gave out slowly, like ropes unraveling, and he slumped forward. No one screamed. No one moved. The overseer barked once, but the boy didn't stir. 2 men dragged him to the edge of the trench. They didn't speak, just glanced around and waited for the next load of clay. When it came, they covered him. First the legs, then the back, then the head. No prayers, no words. Just wet, heavy shovelfuls of earth until there was nothing left to see. And then the bricks went over him. And then the wall continued. It happens more often now. At first, you thought each death might pause the work, that someone would notice, say something, record a name. But names are not used here. Only numbers, and not even those often. Men vanish without notice. One day they're beside you, sharing water or grumbling about the cold, and the next day their bed is empty and someone else is using their tools. You used to look for them. Your eyes would scan the crowd during morning roll call, hoping to find familiar shoulders or a particular cough, but that too faded. You stopped looking. The wall demands presence, not memory. If someone is missing, then they are gone. If someone is gone, they are not coming back. And still, the bricks are carried. Still, the mortar is mixed. Still, the wall swells outward, upward, forward, indifferent to the cost. You've stepped on fingers that didn't move. You've passed a pile of rags that smelled too strongly of meat. Once your shovel struck something soft beneath the clay. You didn't look. The man beside you did. His face changed, and then he kept digging. There is no ceremony here, no mourning. The dead become part of the structure, literally. It is not poetic. It is practical. There is no time to bury, no men to spare, no carts to haul away the fallen. The earth takes them back with the same indifference with which it held them alive. And still the wall grows. Some say it makes the wall stronger, that human matter helps bind the stone. Others say nothing at all. What's the point? Nothing changes. You feel your own weight each day, your own exhaustion in your shoulders, and wonder if your body will also disappear beneath the next layer of mud. You wonder if it already has, if the part of you that hoped or feared or cared was already buried days ago. At night, when the noise settles and the stars peek through the smoke, the silence is full of missing voices. The man who used to hum in his sleep is gone. The one who traded stories about his village hasn't spoken in days. The spaces between bodies are larger now, though no one says it out loud. No one wants to count. No one wants to know how many are left. You pull your blanket tighter and press your back to the wall, feeling its damp breath against your skin. Somewhere inside it are men you once knew, maybe even friends. You don't remember their names anymore, but their faces return in flashes. The curve of a smile, the way someone limped, the scratchy voice that always asked for a second portion. They are there now, sealed into the thing that killed them. The wall keeps growing, and the dead keep vanishing. In the end, it won't matter whose bones support it, only that it stands. And still, in the morning, you will rise, and lift, and carry, until the wall takes you too. Winter arrives without warning. One morning the air is just colder, the dirt harder, the wind sharper against your skin. And then it doesn't stop. The frost settles in your hair before you even reach the site, turning every breath into a shallow puff of steam that disappears before it rises. Your hands are the first to betray you. The fingers, stiff and red, no longer curl properly around the handles of the tools. The shovel splinters feel sharper now, and the metal burns when you touch it, not with fire but with cold. You try to work faster to keep the blood moving, but the stones are heavier when wet, and your body is slower when numb. Snow sticks to the ground in layers, then melts just enough to turn everything into ice. Your footing is no longer steady. You slip. Others fall. But there's no pause, no delay. The overseers yell louder to cover the wind, and the wind howls back as if mocking both of you. Your clothes are soaked before midday. What little fabric you have clings to your body, offering no warmth, only weight. The mud freezes in clumps around your ankles, and you walk as if dragging someone behind you. You try to keep your sleeves pulled down, but they ride up anyway, exposing raw skin that stings under the wind's assault. Some wrap their feet in rags. Some work with broken shoes or none at all. The ground beneath the wall is no longer dirt, but brittle stone crusted with frost. When a brick slips from someone's grip, it bounces down the slope and shatters. And sometimes it doesn't shatter alone. Once you watched a man go down with a full load. His face hit the edge of a foundation stone, and no one went to check if he was breathing. The stone was cleaned. The wall resumed. Blood darkens quickly in the cold. It blends with the earth. Even death seems quieter when it freezes. Eating becomes harder. The food is colder now, the consistency like paste that refuses to move on the spoon. Your jaw aches just from chewing. You sit in tight circles to preserve warmth, but there's no fire. Fires are for soldiers, for officers, for men with names. You have only your breath and your silence. Water turns to slush and then to ice. You suck on chunks of it, letting them melt slowly inside your cheeks while your teeth rattle. Sleep is no relief. The cold comes into your bones and stays there. You curl tight under your blanket, if you still have one. But the wind finds you anyway, slipping in through the cracks, through your sleeves, into your lungs. Men wake with fingers they cannot move, with coughs they did not have the night before. Frost creeps across the edges of the tents like mold. You used to count how many made it to morning. You've stopped counting now. It's easier not to know. Work does not slow. If anything, it speeds up. There is pressure to finish before the ground turns too hard to dig. The bricks must be set, the mortar poured, the towers outlined before everything locks in place beneath the freeze. The overseers grow meaner in the cold, their tempers shorter, their lashes quicker. Maybe they feel it too. Maybe it makes them cruel. Or maybe they simply want to remind you that your suffering is not theirs. You try to keep your head down, your mouth shut, your fingers moving. Every hour feels like 3. The sun rises late and leaves early, and the hours between are just shades of gray. You learn to move through them like a ghost. The wind cuts your ears, your nose, your cheeks, but you keep going. You don't think about warmth. That thought hurts more than the cold. You don't dream of blankets or hearths or the sun. You dream of numbness, of nothing, of not feeling at all. And as the wall climbs higher and the snow thickens around its base, you become part of it, slow and silent and half frozen, but still standing, still working, because winter does not care, and neither does the wall. You learn early not to speak unless spoken to, and even then, you choose your words like you're holding them over fire. The guards don't like voices. They don't like questions. They don't like the sound of anything that isn't orders being obeyed or rocks being moved. If you fall, you're hit. If you pause, you're hit. If your eyes meet theirs too long, or your pace is off, or you look like you might say something, you're hit. It's not always with a whip. Sometimes it's the butt of a spear, sometimes the flat of a hand, sometimes a boot in your side as you bend for another stone. They strike not because they're angry, they strike because they can, because you are here to be struck, and if they don't, the men might begin to think they're more than bodies. That cannot be allowed. So you keep your head down. You don't react when they pass. You become quieter than the dirt you stand on. There's no pattern to it. One man works slowly all day and walks away untouched. Another stumbles once and earns a bleeding lip. You stop trying to understand why. Logic has no place here. You carry your weight, you do your part, and you pray the guard's attention lands elsewhere. But it never feels like enough. The fear settles under your skin, constant, like the cold. You work with your shoulders tensed, waiting for pain. When it comes, it always surprises you. And still, you don't cry out. You don't run. You don't ask why. You've seen what happens to those who do. One man, not from your group, once shouted after being struck. Just a single word. Maybe it was why, or maybe it was his mother's name. It didn't matter. The guard hit him again, and again, and again, until he stopped making noise altogether. No one spoke about it. The next day, his place in line was filled by someone new. At night, you feel the bruises bloom across your body like flowers that never open. You rub them gently, not to heal them, but to remember where they are. The soreness helps you map yourself, piece by piece, in a world where everything else is a blur of labor and stone. Sometimes the pain helps you sleep, sometimes it wakes you. You lie still, listening to the groans around you. No one talks about what happened that day, but you all know. You all saw it. Every one of you has tasted it. Some wear it more openly, swollen eyes, split lips, stiff arms held close to the chest. Others hide it better. But no one is spared. Even the strongest fall, even the quietest. The guards don't need reasons. They need rhythm. They strike like punctuation, keeping the tempo of work. One beat off and the lash comes down. You stop wondering if they feel anything when they do it. You stop imagining what kind of men they are. You can't afford to. Over time, your body learns to anticipate the blows. You flinch before they land. You move slightly faster when they draw near, your spine straightening as if pulled by a string. You no longer react with surprise. Pain becomes part of the routine, a dark thread woven into every action. You stop seeing the guards as people. They are extensions of the wall, just like you. Their cruelty is the mortar. Their silence is the stone. Sometimes, in the rare quiet, you imagine what it might be like to live a day without fear of sudden violence. But the thought fades quickly, not because it's impossible, but because it's dangerous. Hope makes you soft, and softness is punished. So you keep moving, keep stacking, keep bleeding when necessary. And when you're struck, you do not scream. You keep your mouth shut and your hands working. Because here, obedience is not rewarded, it's expected, and silence is the only defense you have left. The higher you climb, the quieter everything becomes. Not because the work slows. If anything, it gets harder as the path narrows and the air thins, but because sound itself seems to vanish in the mountains. The wind hisses between the rocks like a warning, but your voice never comes back to you. You learned that the first time someone cried out for help. He had slipped while carrying a basket of broken stones, the strap snapping and spilling his load across the slope. His ankle twisted beneath him, and he screamed, a sharp, guttural noise that would have echoed like thunder in the valley below. But up here, it just disappeared. No echo, no answer. It was as if the mountain swallowed it before it reached the trees. No one came to help him. They heard it, of course. But what were they supposed to do? The silence made it easier to pretend they hadn't. So the man pulled himself back to the edge of the platform and sat with his head down, waiting for someone to call him useless or hit him. No one did. The silence had already done that. You begin to understand the weight of that silence. It presses against your ears as you work, filling every space that used to hold thought or memory. You don't talk to the men around you. You might nod, occasionally grunt when passing tools, but the wind makes conversation pointless, and the silence punishes those who break it. Even the guards speak less up here. Their words are clipped, barked, and quickly lost in the void between cliff and sky. It's not just quiet, it's absence. Like the mountain itself has no interest in what you're doing, as if your labor is too small to matter, your suffering too familiar to notice. The rocks don't care, the cold doesn't care, and the silence, endless, heavy silence, makes it clear that nothing you say will change anything. You could scream until your throat bleeds, and the stone would not shift. You could call for your mother, your wife, your God, and the wind would scatter your voice into nothing. Sometimes, when a man falls, there's no cry at all, just the sound of fabric scraping rock, or a thud from below that no one wants to acknowledge. You don't ask who it was. You don't look down. There's no ceremony, no procession, only a gap in the line and the quiet hum of work continuing. You begin to wonder if the mountain demands silence, if the wall, here in its highest reaches, needs quiet to grow. There's something sacred about how empty it feels, but not sacred in a comforting way. Sacred like a tomb or a ruin, or the space left behind after something ancient and hungry has already passed through. You watch your feet closely now. You move deliberately, not because you're afraid of falling, but because you've accepted that if you do, you won't be caught. You will vanish into the rocks like the others. Maybe your body will be found. Maybe it won't. But your voice will already be gone. At night, the silence is worst. You lie on a patch of flattened dirt carved into the mountain's edge, your body wrapped in whatever fabric you still possess, and you listen. Not to noise, but to the absence of it. No crickets, no rustling trees, just wind and breath, and the occasional shift of someone's foot against stone. You would give anything for sound. Laughter, footsteps, a dog barking, something human. But there is none of that here. Only the endless reminder that you are very far from home, very small, and very alone. And yet, you're not. There are dozens of others sleeping nearby. But the silence separates you more thoroughly than any wall could. It's a silence that doesn't just surround you. It lives inside you. And in the morning, you'll wake again. You'll haul another basket. You'll scrape another layer of clay onto the frozen stone. You'll watch the wall rise higher into a sky that never listens. And still, you will not speak, because the mountain has already taught you. The silence is louder than your screams. The rock is too large. You know this before you even reach it. Its shape is uneven, swollen on one side, with jagged edges that have already cut into someone else's arm. Two men rolled it off the cart with difficulty, grunting as it dropped to the ground with a heavy thud that made the dust rise. It should take 2, maybe 3 people to carry, or at least drag. But you are alone. Not because there aren't others nearby, but because today, you've been told to move it yourself. You hesitate, only for a breath. That's all you're allowed. You hear the slow crunch of boots behind you, measured, expectant. You don't need to turn. You know who it is. He won't speak. He never does. The stick in his hand speaks for him. You crouch slowly, wrap your arms around the stone as best you can, and prepare to lift something that your body has no business lifting. You do it anyway, because the only thing heavier than the rock is the punishment for leaving it untouched. Your legs tremble immediately. Your arms feel like thread trying to hold a boulder. The stone scrapes your stomach, presses against your ribs, pulls at your back like it wants to tear you open. You can't see the ground anymore. Only the curve of the rock and the flickers of your own breath. You stumble forward, not walking so much as lurching, like some broken animal hauling its own weight to slaughter. Every step jars something loose inside you. Pain radiates from your knees, down your shins, up through your spine. You grit your teeth so hard you taste blood, but you keep moving, because the only direction allowed is forward. You don't think about the destination. It's too far, too steep. You think only about the next step, and then the next. You tell yourself if you just reach that crack in the dirt, you can pause. But you don't pause. You're not allowed to. Pausing is worse than falling. Falling is shame. Pausing is defiance. Someone shouts, but not at you. Someone else dropped something. You don't look. You focus on the stone. It feels heavier now than when you first picked it up, as if it's feeding on your exhaustion, as if the wall itself is testing you. There's a moment, halfway up the slope, when your legs almost give. Your vision blurs. A buzzing creeps into your ears. Your foot slips, and for a second you feel weightless, but you correct it, somehow, and stumble forward again. You wonder distantly what would happen if you simply let go. If you dropped the stone and sat down. Would they drag you away? Would they beat you until you couldn't stand? Would they bury you in the wall like the others? But the thought passes. It has to. There's no space for questions, only motion. The stone must reach the platform. You must survive the carrying. What happens after is someone else's concern. When you finally reach the edge of the scaffold, the others don't cheer. No one nods. No one even glances your way. They're too busy with their own loads, their own pain. You lower the stone slowly, trying not to drop it, not out of respect, but because if it cracks, you'll have to fetch another. When it hits the surface, you stagger back and sit hard on the ground. Your lungs seize, your chest burns, your arms shake uncontrollably. For a moment you think you might vomit, or cry, or pass out. But none of those things happen. You just breathe. Slowly, shallowly. And then you rise because someone calls your name, or what's left of your name, and points to the next stone. It is smaller, but your body is weaker now. The same weight, again and again. You know you can't do this forever, but you also know that for now, you must. Because behind you stands the man with the stick. Because the wall does not build itself. Because the rocks do not care how strong you are. Only that you carry them. The water comes once in the morning, and once again, if you're lucky, sometime after the sun has reached its highest point. It is carried in a barrel, wooden, old, leaking at the seams, and ladled out with the same cracked scoop every time. The color is the first thing you notice. Yellow-brown, with things floating in it that no one tries to name. It smells of wet rope, of earth and rust and something faintly rotten. But you drink it anyway. Because it's not water for taste. It's not even water for thirst. It's survival, and nothing more. You don't ask where it came from. You don't care if it was pulled from a stream or scraped from a puddle after last night's rain. It's wet. It doesn't kill you immediately. That's enough. You step forward when your turn comes. You swallow as much as they allow, and you move on. There's no refilling. There's no second helping. The man behind you needs his share too. If you're caught taking more, there are consequences. You've seen them. The guards control the rationing. 1 ladle per man, sometimes less if the supply is low. They watch closely. If your hands tremble and you spill some, that's your mistake to bear. No one offers theirs to make up for it. You drink with both hands cupped, or if you're lucky enough to have kept a bowl or can, you use that carefully. The water is always warm, never cool. It's been sitting in the sun for hours before reaching you, baking in its own filth. Still, when it hits your throat, you feel it like a blessing. Not a pleasure, just a pause in the tightness. For a moment, your chest expands a little easier. Your eyes clear. You can almost imagine being clean. But the illusion doesn't last. The taste settles in the back of your mouth like metal. You feel it later in your gut, twisting softly, reminding you that this water isn't meant to nourish. It's meant to keep you upright, nothing more. You drink to stay conscious, not to live well. By mid-afternoon, the sun has baked the ground beneath your feet until it cracks, and your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth like paper. You start to measure time by thirst. Each task becomes a countdown to the next swallow. Each load of bricks a test of how long your body can go before shaking. Sometimes someone faints, not many. Most learn the rhythm early, how to ration their energy, how to breathe shallow to avoid drying out too fast. You don't sweat as much as you used to. Your body knows to hold on, but your lips split anyway. Your urine turns darker every day. The headaches come and go, throbbing behind your eyes, pulsing in your temples. There are rumors of a well nearby, guarded, covered. You've never seen it. Some say the soldiers use it. Some say it's poisoned anyway. You don't ask questions. They only make the thirst worse. When the water doesn't come at all, which happens more often now, everything slows. Not because you want it to, but because your body makes that decision for you. The pain in your head turns sharp. Your hands stop closing properly. The world swims, and still, you work. Because collapsing isn't rest, it's danger. You've seen what happens when someone falls and doesn't get up quickly. No one rushes to help. There is no mercy. The guards may look, but only to decide whether you're worth dragging off or leaving where you dropped. Some men drink from puddles when it rains. Others suck moisture from wet fabric. You've done both. You've knelt in the mud to press your face into standing water and ignored the taste of ash, of dung, of rot. Because the wall doesn't care how clean you are, only that you stand, that you move, that you lift and lay and lift again. And without water, you can't. So you do whatever it takes. You drink whatever is offered. Because in this place, water isn't life, it's currency. And if you don't get enough, you pay the rest of the price with your body. He didn't scream when he fell. That's the part you remember most. Just a soft grunt as his knees buckled and his shoulder hit the stone. You turned your head in time to see his hands splayed on the ground, the dirt already clinging to his skin like it belonged there. For a moment, you thought he might get up. He'd stumbled before. Everyone had. But this time was different. His chest didn't move. His eyes were half open, not blinking. One of the guards approached, looked down, then back up at the rest of you. No words were spoken. There was no announcement, no call for help, no break in the routine. The closest two men stepped forward, not to mourn, not to pray, but to drag his body to the edge of the platform. You wanted to follow, to do something. He had spoken to you just the night before. But your legs didn't move. Your arms lifted the next stone. Because the wall needed it. Because the wall doesn't stop. They laid him in a shallow indentation in the clay. No one measured it. No one even brushed the dirt from his face. He was curled slightly on his side, as if resting. Then came the first shovel of mud, thick and wet, slapped down across his hip. Another followed. Then more. A rhythm formed, the kind of rhythm you knew well by now. Within minutes, his outline blurred. His clothes became just more dark brown fabric against darker brown ground. Someone tossed down broken bricks. Someone else swept loose gravel to fill the gaps. The space that had been a body became a base, a foundation. It would support more wall. You kept working, not because you wanted to, but because the silence demanded it. The same silence that always came after someone died. the kind that wrapped around your throat, whispering, "This is how it ends for all of you." You didn't speak about him that night. You all sat near the fireless pit, knees drawn up, shoulders hunched, faces shadowed. A few coughed. One man sobbed quietly, not from sadness, but from pain in his ribs. You remembered your friend's voice, the way he'd hummed under his breath while mixing mortar, the story he'd told about a river near his home, the way he always saved a scrap of food in case someone else went hungry. But the others said nothing. His name didn't pass between you. It wasn't forbidden. It was just too dangerous. Naming the dead made them real again. It reminded you that any of you could be next, that tomorrow someone might be sealing you into the same clay. And so the silence was safer. It kept your mind focused on the next stone, the next breath, the next hour. The wall was not a place for grief. It was a place for labor and for forgetting. By morning, there was no trace left. The platform was level. The bricks above were firm. The wall had grown. That was all that mattered. Someone else filled his position, handed the same tools, stood in the same place. You watched the mortar being smoothed over the seam that crossed the spot where his body had been. It looked no different than any other, maybe stronger, maybe not. It didn't matter. You understood now why there were no graves, no markers, no prayers. There was no time, no space, no reason. The wall needed everything, even the dead, especially the dead. They were the most reliable material. They didn't slow, didn't eat, didn't complain. They stayed where they were placed, and the wall would ration on top of them, indifferent and absolute. That evening, as you lay on the cold earth again, you wondered whether your own body would be light enough to carry, flat enough to cover, useful enough to support the next row. And if it was, you hoped someone would at least remember your face, even if they never said your name. Sleep isn't something you fall into here. It's something you ration, like water or breath. It comes in fragments, measured not by hours, but by how long your body can stay still before the cold or pain wakes you again. You lie on the dirt, always dirt, pressed against bodies you don't know. There is no privacy, no comfort, just a patch of ground carved out beside the wall, barely wide enough for two men to lie shoulder to shoulder. You curl up tight, knees to chest, arms crossed to keep your ribs warm, and you wait. Wait for sleep to come. Wait for your mind to drift just far enough to forget where you are. But the ground is never soft, and the wind finds every seam in your clothing. You shift from one side to the other every 30 minutes or so, not because you want to, but because the pain in your hips becomes too much. There's always someone coughing, someone muttering, someone praying under their breath. You recognize the sounds now. They're not meant for answers, just for holding on. The stranger next to you might have arrived today, or been here for months. You don't ask. There's no time to learn names, no use in building attachments. Faces blur together in the dust and shadows. You remember them by the way they sleep. A man who clenches his fists even in rest. Another who groans with every breath. Another who snores until he chokes. The line between bodies is thin. You feel the heat of others, their breath against your neck, their twitching legs kicking against your own. There's no shame in it, just necessity. You learn to shift in sync, turning together in a wave of aching joints. If someone doesn't move, you don't ask why. You don't reach out. You just turn away and make room for the next. Sometimes someone gets up in the middle of the night and doesn't return. You never ask where they went. You already know the absence is enough. Dreams come strangely here, when they come at all. Most nights you drift in and out, half-conscious, stuck in a cycle of memories that don't feel like yours anymore. You dream of food, of water, of warmth, but even in sleep, your body remembers it doesn't have those things. Sometimes you startle awake, unsure whether you've been gone for minutes or hours. The darkness never changes. The sky above doesn't tell you anything. The mountain blocks the moon. You listen instead to the shuffling, the teeth chattering, the whimpering sounds that men make when they think no one is listening. One night, the man beside you cried the whole time. Not loudly, not with sobs, just slow, steady tears like a leaking pipe. No one said anything. You couldn't. Words belong to the day. At night, there is only breathing and silence, and the wall rising behind you like a black shape pressed against the stars. When the call comes, quiet but final, you stand, or you try to. Your legs argue, your spine protests, your head floats, but you rise anyway. The cold has settled deep in your joints, and it takes longer now to shake the stiffness from your limbs. You stretch your arms, wince at the tightness, and glance once more at the bodies still lying on the ground. One or two don't move. Maybe they're still sleeping. Maybe they're not. No one checks. The living don't bury the dead here. They simply work around them until someone drags the body away or covers it over. You take your first step of the day and feel the weight return to your shoulders. Not from the stones, not yet, but from the knowledge that sleep is gone again, and it will not return for a long time. And when it does, it will be the same, short, shallow, shared with strangers. You won't know if it will bring rest or dreams or nothing. You won't care. You'll lie down in the dirt, close your eyes, and hope that when you open them again, you'll still be able to stand. You can't remember the last time you looked up. Maybe in the first days, when the wall was still unfamiliar, when your neck still moved freely, and your thoughts hadn't settled into the hard rhythm of survival. But now your gaze is fixed downward, on the path, on the stone, on the boots of the man in front of you. There's no reason to lift your head. Nothing up there belongs to you. The sky, if it still exists, is not for you to see. It is always obscured by dust kicked up from thousands of feet, by smoke from distant fires, by the haze of exhaustion that lives behind your eyes. When you glance upward by accident, all you find is the outline of the wall, always growing, always there, like a mountain laid by human hands. Beyond it, only smears of brown and gray, as if someone tried to paint a sky but gave up halfway through. There is no blue, no clouds, no open space, just the heavy ceiling of dust above your life. The sun filters through it like a dying flame. It casts no warmth. It doesn't mark time. It just hangs, a pale, blurry circle in the mess of the air. When it moves, you don't notice. The dust makes everything feel still, like the world has been wrapped in cloth. You feel it in your throat first, grains clinging to your tongue, lining your teeth, choking your breath. Then in your eyes, which itch constantly, the corners crusted from long hours squinting through the haze. You don't wipe them anymore. There's no point. Your hands are no cleaner than the air. Sometimes the dust is thick enough to blur faces, to make the man beside you look like a ghost. And in those moments, you almost believe that he is. The wall rises in this fog, stone after stone, as if it's pushing its way toward a heaven that none of you will ever reach. And still you lift, still you drag, still you walk forward, with the dust filling every corner of your world. Birds fly overhead sometimes. Not many, just a few. Black shapes gliding slowly in circles, patient and distant. They don't sing, they don't dive, they just watch. You notice them most when someone collapses. It's not immediate, but after a while they gather. You try not to think about why. You try not to look at them too long. Their wings cut through the haze like knives, smooth and precise. Unlike you, unlike the wall, unlike the mess of men below who break themselves for something they'll never understand. Sometimes you imagine what they see from above, the endless line of movement, the flickers of limbs in motion, the slow, steady rise of a barrier that stretches farther than any eye can follow. But then you remember your place. You remember the dust. You lower your head again and take another step. The birds keep circling. At night, the dust settles on your skin like snow. You wipe it from your face and it coats your fingers. You shake out your blanket and a cloud lifts up, only to fall again. It is everywhere, between your toes, in your ears, on your lips. You taste it in your sleep. You cough it out when you wake. It makes everything gritty, everything coarse. Even your thoughts feel dry now. You don't think in pictures anymore. You think in texture, in weight, in the dull scrape of fabric against skin. The sky, if it exists, never clears. Even the stars are strangers here. Sometimes, if you lie on your back, just for a moment, you try to find a gap in the dust, a crack in the silence, a reminder that there's something above all of this. But all you see is the same endless veil, the same muted nothing. And so you turn back onto your side, curl into yourself, and close your eyes. Tomorrow you will wake. You will lift. You will walk beneath the dust again. And you will not look up, because there is no sky here, only what falls down. It started with a sound you weren't expecting, a sudden shout, sharp and panicked, cutting through the usual silence like a snapped branch in a quiet forest. You didn't see who it was. You only felt the ripple of attention shift, heads turning briefly, hands pausing mid-lift, backs straightening just enough to hear better. Then another sound followed. Footsteps, uneven and fast, scraping over stone and dirt. Someone was running. It didn't happen often. Most didn't have the strength, and even fewer had the desperation. But someone in that moment had decided to try. You didn't move. You didn't speak. You kept your eyes down and your hands working, because there was nothing to be done. Everyone knew what would come next. A second shout, this time not from the runner. Then a rustle of armor, the scrape of spears against belts, the low thud of a man knocked to the ground. Then silence. Deep and complete, as if the mountain itself had exhaled and gone still. No one looked toward the sound again, and the work resumed. You didn't ask what happened. You didn't need to. By now, the pattern is clear. Sometimes a man will vanish in the night, slipping away from the camp with nothing but a threadbare blanket and a hope that somewhere, somehow, there's an edge to this place. But there is no edge. only more wall, more stone, more wilderness patrolled by men who are better fed and better armed than anyone here. And even if you get past them, what then? The mountains are high, the villages are distant, and the Emperor's reach is longer than the wind. You've heard stories of those who made it 3 days before being dragged back. Bloody, broken, quiet. Others were never found, and you're told that's the better fate. But most don't make it past the first mile, not because they can't run, but because they're already too tired before they start. The wall bleeds you dry before it lets you think of freedom. That's its true genius. You dream of escape only when your body no longer has the strength to follow through. The next morning, you notice it. A gap. Small, but present. One fewer man in the line. One fewer hand reaching for the shared bowl of food. No one mentions it. No one claims his things. The spot will be filled by someone new by nightfall. You wonder if anyone knew his name. You didn't. You might have heard his voice once, muttering about his home province or whispering a prayer under his breath. But now that voice is gone, and the stones still need moving. The wall doesn't pause for absence. It absorbs it, like it absorbs everything else. You feel that in your bones as you lift another load. The memory of the sound he made, the beginning of a scream or a plea, flickers in your mind. But it fades quickly. There's no time to carry someone else's fear. You already have enough of your own, and so you work, you walk, you stack, as if he was never there. At night, lying in the dirt, you sometimes think about what he saw. The runner. The moment when he stepped beyond the assigned path. The instant his foot touched the ground in the wrong direction. Did he believe he had a chance? Did he think someone would follow, help, cover for him? Or was it just instinct, some last flicker of survival refusing to lie still? You wonder if you would ever do the same. If something in you might one day break free, not for escape, but simply to move differently, to feel something other than routine. But then the cold creeps into your spine. The ache settles deeper into your joints, and you remember the silence that followed his attempt. The silence that always follows. That is what you fear most. Not the punishment, not the capture, not even the death, but the way everything continues as if nothing happened, as if no one ran, as if no one ever hoped. So you stay. You keep your head down, and you carry the next stone. Because here, the only thing that runs free is the dust. The wall stretches farther than your eyes can follow. Even when the air is clear, and that's rare, it fades into the horizon like a line drawn by a hand too large to comprehend. You've been here for what feels like a lifetime, though you know it hasn't been long. You count time not in weeks or months, but in layers of pain. The wall moves slowly, methodically, like a beast digesting the living. For every section that rises, dozens of men fall. You're told it will take years to complete this segment alone, maybe longer, but you won't see the end. No one around you will. That's not why you're here. You're not here to build the wall. You're here to die beneath it. You feel it every morning in the way your body takes longer to respond, in the way your breath catches even when you're not moving. The wall may endure. You won't. They say your assignment lasts 1 year. That's what they told your village, at least. A year of service to the Emperor. A year of labor in defense of the nation. But you've seen what a year looks like here. No one completes it. Not truly. By the 4th month, your hands are raw and your back bowed. By the 5th, Your eyes are dull, your feet cracked, your stomach shrunken. By the 6th, you're counting how many men don't return each night. You've stopped asking how long you've been here. Time loses meaning when every day repeats the same wounds. You measure your life in bricks lifted, lashes avoided, meals missed. You've memorized the shape of the stones more than your own name. Some men arrive with fire in their eyes, convinced they'll outlast this place. Most don't make it to winter. The mountain eats them first. The cold, the hunger, the work. The wall is patient. It can wait. You cannot. There's a section near where you work, newly built, still rough around the edges. You helped dig the foundation, helped raise the scaffold. You know every stone in that stretch by heart. You remember when the first body was buried in it, the first scream that didn't echo. Now it stands 3 men high, strong and wide, casting shadows over the living who still crawl at its base. You look at it sometimes and wonder how many weeks it represents. How many bones are sealed within it? How many men broke themselves on the same path you now walk? You used to think about contributing something, leaving a mark, but now you understand. Your mark will not be remembered. There is no legacy here, no honor, only the slow erasure of the self. One day, you will vanish, and the wall will continue. It won't remember your hands. It won't miss your breath. It will simply grow as if you had never been. At night, you sometimes trace the cracks in the wall with your fingertips, following the lines like they might spell something. Your name, your fate, a message from someone who came before. But they say nothing, just stone pressed into more stone, unmoved by memory. You lie down on the same ground you dig all day, and you wonder how close you are to becoming part of it. How much longer your knees will hold. How many mornings your body will answer the call before it doesn't. You don't think in years anymore. You barely think in days, just in breaths. One, then another, and maybe one more after that. If you're lucky. If the wall allows it. You know now that this place was never meant to be finished by men like you. It was meant to consume you. And still you wake. Still you lift. Still you move beneath the shadow of something far larger than life. Because while the wall may take years to rise, your time runs out long before the mortar dries. There was a time when your name meant something. It tied you to a family, a village, a childhood memory of sunlight on water, or the smell of steamed rice in a clay pot. It was a sound that held shape and warmth, something your mother whispered when she tucked you in, something a friend called out across a field. But that name has no use here. No one asks for it. No one uses it. The guards call by numbers when they bother to speak at all, and the men around you barely speak either. You've learned their movements, their coughs, the rhythm of their steps, but not their names. Even your own voice sounds strange now when you try to remember it. The syllables blur. You mouth the first sound and stop. It no longer feels like it belongs to you. What belongs to you now is simpler, heavier. It has no sound, but it has weight. A stone, a shape. The shape of your days, your breath, your purpose. Every morning you pick it up. Not the same one, but close enough. Rough edges, uneven weight. Sometimes it cuts into your skin. Sometimes it grinds into your bones like it wants to enter you. You carry it the same way every time. Arms wrapped, shoulders bent, stomach clenched. You've forgotten how to walk without it. Your spine stays curved even when you're not lifting. Your hands twitch in your sleep, fingers curling as if still gripping the load. The stone has taught you more than your teachers ever did. It has taught you patience, rhythm, humility. It has taught you that resistance is temporary and weight is eternal. It doesn't matter if you scream. It doesn't matter if your knees shake. It will not carry itself. So you lift, and you carry, and you lower it onto the next line, pressing it into place like a heartbeat. Yours or someone else's. It doesn't matter anymore. There's a kind of truth in the stone that nothing else here gives you. It doesn't lie. It doesn't promise. It doesn't change. It's always there, waiting, demanding. You know its heft before you touch it. You can guess its center of gravity just by glancing. You understand its silence. You respect it. More than the guards, more than the men who bark orders and hide behind whips. The stone doesn't care who you were before. It doesn't remember your crimes or your reasons or your family's debt. It only asks for your body, and you give it. Not because you choose to, but because that choice has long since passed. In time, it begins to feel like the only real thing left in your world. You forget meals, conversations, even the days of the week, but you always remember the curve of the stone in your arms. You remember the burn in your thighs as you climb with it. You remember the sound it makes when you drop it just right into the mud. One day, the stone will be the last thing you touch. You already know this, whether it falls on you or whether you fall beside it. Either way, it will outlast you. It will be pressed into the wall. It will hold the weight of others. It will become part of something far larger, something you helped shape but will never see completed. And in that way, it becomes your grave, your marker, your only proof. No one will speak of you. No one will carve your name into anything. But someone someday will walk along this wall and place their hand on a stone, and that stone will be yours. Your hands placed it. Your breath lifted it. Your silence sealed it into place. And though your name is gone, the weight remains. That is what you leave behind. Not words, not memory, but weight. Cold and solid and honest, and still, tomorrow, you will pick it up again. Because you no longer need a name to carry the truth. Only strength, only silence, only stone. It always starts the same way. Soft, barely audible, like someone clearing their throat or muttering in their sleep. A cough, just one. You hear it while stacking bricks or scraping clay from a broken cart, and for a moment, you tell yourself it's nothing, just dust in the lungs or cold in the bones. But by the next day, it's louder, deeper, rattling, and it doesn't stop. It moves through the group like wind through dry grass, quiet at first, then constant. No one speaks of it. No one points. You don't have to. You all know what it means. That man, whoever he is, will not be here long. You can already see the curve in his spine, the sheen of sweat even when the morning is cold. He stumbles more than usual. His hands shake when he drinks. His voice, if he still uses it, is hoarse and distant. You try not to watch. You try not to notice. But you do because you've seen it before, and because you sleep next to him. There's nowhere else to go. No clean side of camp. No quarantined corner. If someone gets sick, they stay where they are until they can't. You still lie shoulder to shoulder in the same row, your face inches from his back, your breath mixing with his. When he coughs in the night, it wakes you. Not because of the sound, but because of the fear. You feel your own chest tighten, your own throat dry. You wonder how long until you start coughing too. But you don't move away. No one does. There's no space. And even if there were, what would be the point? You share everything here. Tools, water, blankets, sweat. Disease is just one more thing passed from hand to hand, mouth to mouth, breath to breath. It moves faster than the bricks do, faster than the guards, faster than you can whisper a prayer. And it does not stop for orders. You can't build a wall against it. By the time the fever sets in, it's already too late. You've seen it enough to recognize the signs. The red eyes, the trembling jaw, the sudden silence from a man who once muttered stories in his sleep. Some try to keep working, to convince themselves it's just a chill. They move slower, drink more water, wrap rags around their faces. But the body gives out before the wall does. Always. One by one they drop, some mid-step, others during meals, a few curled in the dirt with their arms clutched tight across their stomachs. You learn to step around them. You don't offer help. You don't ask questions. If someone still breathes, the guards might let them lie for a day, but usually not. There are no doctors, no medicine, only labor and silence. Sometimes the sick are carried to the edge and left there, in the shade of unfinished stone. Other times, they're simply buried beneath it. One man less. One stone more. You try not to think about it. You focus on your tasks, your footing, the rhythm of your breath. But it's always there, just behind your teeth. The worry, the waiting. You feel every tickle in your throat like a threat. Every ache in your joints like a countdown. When your bunkmate coughs, you count the days. When he doesn't move, you know. And when someone else takes his place that night, you don't ask where he went. There's no point. The wall doesn't remember names. It doesn't care who dies of fever or cold or starvation. It only rises. And you, still upright, still coughing only in your mind, continue your part. You sleep where you must. You breathe what you're given. And when the man beside you stirs in his sleep, shivering and slick with sweat, you don't turn away. You lie still. You close your eyes. You hope he lasts the night. And you hope quietly that you will too. You live so close to other bodies that your breath is never your own. It mingles with theirs in every exhale, every sigh, every shiver that escapes in the dark. At night, you lie packed together like cargo, knees to backs, shoulders to ribs, feet pressed against legs. There is no space between, only heat, or the desperate lack of it. You don't know the names of most of the men you sleep beside, but you know their sounds, the rhythm of their wheezing, the pitch of their teeth grinding in restless dreams. You know who twitches, who kicks, who cries without making a sound. The cold wraps around you all like a sheet of iron. It seeps into your joints, numbs your fingers, stiffens your jaw. You turn toward the nearest body, not from care, but from need. It is the only warmth available, and even that is too thin to last till morning. Sometimes you catch yourself hoping for fewer bodies. Not because you're cruel, but because the idea of more space, just enough to stretch your legs, feels almost like mercy. The lice are always there, in your clothes, in your blankets, in your hair. They itch at the base of your neck, crawl down your arms, bury themselves in the seams of every scrap of fabric you still own. You scratch until your skin breaks, until the blood dries under your nails. You share them without meaning to. One man's infestation becomes everyone's, and no one is spared. You've stopped trying to get rid of them. There's nothing to use. No water, no soap, no fire hot enough to kill them all. You've seen men burn their sleeves just for a moment of relief, only to regret it the same night when the wind turned and there was nothing left to cover their arms. The itching becomes part of your day, as constant as hunger or noise. You stop noticing when others scratch. You stop caring. It's just another part of the body you no longer control. Just another reminder that your skin, like your breath, belongs to the crowd now. In the mornings, the air is wet with the vapor of sleeping lungs. It clings to your face as you sit up, makes the chill feel heavier. You rise slowly, careful not to wake those still dreaming or dead. You're never sure which. You move past outstretched limbs and curled backs, stepping over shoulders like stones in a shallow river. The camp smells of sweat and mildew, of breath left hanging in the air from too many mouths for too many nights. You catch glimpses of faces through the gloom, gray with fatigue, eyes red, lips chapped. Some stare ahead without blinking. Others scratch absently as they move. No one speaks. Words take warmth to form, and you have none to spare. You feel the lice moving again, and you dig your fingers into your collar until the urge passes. You pull your blanket tighter, though it stopped being useful long ago. What little warmth it holds is borrowed from the body beside you, and if he's gone, you'll feel the cold even more. Sometimes you imagine what it would be like to sleep alone, just for one night. To lie flat on your back without someone's elbow digging into your side. To stretch your arms without brushing a stranger's ribs. To breathe without tasting the sickness in another man's cough. But you know it won't happen, not unless someone dies. And even then, the space won't last. The next night, it will be filled again. This place doesn't leave gaps. It absorbs them, fills them, replaces one shivering body with another. So you keep your silence. You curl smaller. You share your lice, your cold, your breath. You do it without question, because there is no other choice. And when the man beside you trembles in his sleep, when his breathing grows sharp and shallow, you shift a little closer, not out of kindness, not out of fear, but because you are still alive and he is still warm. And in this place, that's all you need. The stones never fit. They come in all shapes, rounded, jagged, uneven, cracked. No two are alike. Some wobble when you place them. Others sink too deep into the mortar, tilting the line of the wall like a spine warped by years of labor. The surface beneath your feet isn't flat either. The platform slopes to one side, sagging where the wood has rotted or warped from the rain. Mud cakes the boards, hiding soft spots that sink when stepped on. You feel it every time you lift a load, your footing uncertain, your balance tested. But none of that matters. The wall may bend and buckle and lean. Your back may not. The rule is clear. You stand straight or you're struck. Not because posture helps the wall, no one here believes that, but because control requires discipline, and discipline begins with the body. Bent backs suggest weakness. Weakness invites others to follow. So you are forced to straighten yourself again and again, even as the wall behind you leans like a drunk against the sky. You feel the ache from your neck to your hips, a line of fire that never cools. Every time you stoop to lift a stone, the pain surges, and every time you rise, it settles deeper. But you do it anyway. You keep your shoulders square, your spine tall, your head slightly bowed, not from shame but from necessity. You've learned how to hide pain in your posture, how to mask exhaustion with stillness. The guards watch constantly, eyes scanning the crowd like hawks looking for a twitch in the grass. If your stance falters, if your knees give even a little, you'll feel the sting of the cane across your back. You've seen it leave stripes that stay for weeks. You've seen it reopen old wounds. You've seen it break men entirely. So you train your body to obey, even when it shakes, even when it begs for rest. Straight lines mean survival, not in the wall, but in your flesh. No one cares that the wall is crooked. They measure your body, not the stonework. You lay each rock against the last and pray it doesn't wobble too much. Pray the mortar fills the gaps. You know it won't last. You know wind and time will find the cracks, but that's not your concern. You won't be here when it collapses. Or if you are, it won't matter. Your job is not to build perfectly. Your job is to endure. The wall may lean, but you must not. You tell yourself this as you carry stones up slick wooden ramps, your arms numb, your legs trembling. You chant it silently when you lift again and again and again. The wall is allowed to shift. You are not. That is the unspoken order here. And even when your spine curls in sleep, even when you dream of lying flat, your body still holds that shape. The memory of pain becomes posture. You rise before dawn already braced, already tight, already straight. At night, you sometimes lie on your back just to feel the ground hold you differently. But even then, your shoulders won't relax. Your neck refuses to turn fully to one side. Your lower back hums with a tension that won't release. You stretch as best you can in the darkness, arching slightly, hoping for the click of a vertebrae returning to place. It rarely comes, and even when it does, the relief is brief. Tomorrow, you'll be hunched again beneath the weight of stone and discipline. You'll be judged not by what you build, but by how you carry yourself. And so you keep carrying. You stand taller than your strength allows. You fake steadiness with every step. And when the wall groans and leans and shifts under its own uneven load, you resist the urge to mimic it. Because here, the wall may bend, the earth may tilt. But you must not. Not if you want to see the next day. Not if you want to survive. You've never seen his face, only his name, spoken in whispers, etched into fear, hanging heavy in the mouths of guards who bark his titles like warnings. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, the man who united the kingdoms, who crushed rebellion, who commands mountains to be moved and rivers to be bridged. You are told he is brilliant, ruthless, divine, that his will is the shape of order. But here, in the dust, you see none of that, only the consequences. His hand never touches stone, yet every bruise on your back belongs to him. His eyes never meet yours, yet every day you labor under their gaze. You build the wall not for defense, not for peace, not even for honor, but for him, for his name to outlive the sky, for his shadow to stretch across the north, one stone at a time. You are not asked to understand. You are only expected to obey. His image appears now and then, on a banner above a supply cart, on a scroll in the hands of a passing official. A distant figure, stylized and golden, staring out over the world as if it were his personal field. You see the symbol long before you see the man, if a man is even present. More often, it's just the idea of him that passes by. An order delivered, a sentence carried out, a death declared. His will arrives without fanfare, without question. It doesn't travel on horseback. It travels in chains, in shouted commands, in the crack of a whip when someone falters. You've met his messengers, but never his eyes. And yet, he feels closer than your own family. You carry his name in your lungs like smoke. You build his wall with hands that bleed not for country, but for survival. And still, you've never even seen a coin with his profile. Just mud, just mortar, just more bricks shaped by the weight of a man you'll never meet. They say he is immortal, that he seeks the secret to never dying, that even now he sends men to search for elixirs in distant lands. And here you are, helping him live forever in the only way that truly matters, in stone. Each block you lift, each foot of wall that rises, is another inch added to his memory. You are part of that, not as an honored servant, but as one of many sacrificed to the monument. You've heard that some walls are built to protect, others to divide. This one is built to declare, to say, I was here, I ruled, I commanded. The emperor will die someday. Maybe not today, maybe not for years, but this wall will remain. And you, buried in its base or scattered in its dust, will have helped make him eternal. That is your only reward. Not thanks, not remembrance, just the privilege of contributing to someone else's immortality. At night, when the stars appear in small, dusty windows above the camp, you sometimes wonder if he dreams of the wall. If he thinks of the men crushed beneath it, the ones whose names were never recorded, whose bodies were never buried. You doubt it. He dreams, perhaps, of statues, of maps redrawn, of whispers in marble chambers far from wind and pain. He will never stand where you stand. He will never feel the stone that splits your fingers or taste the air that burns your throat. And yet, everything around you belongs to him. Even your breath, even your silence, even your death. You may never see his eyes, but you see his shadow in every command, every blow, every stone placed too quickly, too carelessly, in fear. That is the shape of power here. Not presence, but pressure. Not the emperor himself, but the echo of his will. And tomorrow, you will carry it again. Not for glory, not for duty, just because there is no other choice. The rain never begins with warning. There's no shift in wind, no scent in the air. Just the first drop striking your shoulder like a fingertip, then another, then too many to count. The sky darkens without urgency, slow and heavy, until the clouds finally let go. You work through it at first. You always do. The guards don't care if it rains. The orders don't change. Stones still need carrying. Mud still needs spreading. You keep moving, soaked to the skin within minutes, your boots sinking deeper with every step. The ground beneath you softens fast. What was solid in the morning turns to a thick, clinging paste by midday. You watch your own footprints vanish behind you as the earth swallows them whole. Then the tools start disappearing. A spade dropped too carelessly is gone the moment it touches the ground. Buckets tip over and vanish beneath the muck. Nothing holds its shape anymore. Not the wall, not the ramps, not the men. Everything slides. You feel it first in your ankles, the ground shifting beneath you, sucking at your feet like it wants to keep you. You try to adjust, stepping wider, digging your heels in. But the mud is stronger than balance. Someone nearby yells as they fall, landing hard, limbs flailing, arms coated in a layer of wet soil so thick it looks like flesh. You don't help. You can't. You're trying not to fall yourself. Around you, the slope begins to ripple as whole sections of the worksite tilt downward, slow at first, then faster. The scaffolding groans, one leg already sinking. A cart topples, bricks tumbling like teeth knocked from a jaw. And the men, they go with it. Some fall forward and are caught in the rush. Others try to crawl uphill, slipping, screaming, clawing at mud that has no mercy. You watch one disappear entirely, arms raised, mouth open, until even the tips of his fingers vanish. The rain doesn't pause. It only falls harder, as if washing the ground clean of memory. By afternoon, the site looks like a battlefield. The wall itself has sagged in places, layers of mortar streaked down like melted wax. Stones have tumbled loose and cracked in the mud. Bodies are pulled out slowly, one by one, slick and silent. Some are still breathing, some are not. You don't count. You don't ask names. A few men lean on each other, coughing mud from their lungs. The guards shout louder, more frantic now, trying to keep order with soaked sleeves and mud-splattered armor. They curse the weather. They curse the men. But no one curses the wall. The wall is never wrong. The ground might give way, the sky might turn violent, the men might fail, but the wall must continue. So by the time the sun begins to dip behind the mountain ridge, the first new stone is lifted. The first patch of ground is cleared. You return to the slope where someone died just hours ago and place your feet in the same spot. The mud is still warm. There is no ceremony, no break, no reconsideration of design or safety. The tools are cleaned as best they can be. The platform is rebuilt with new wood that will rot just as fast. The work resumes before the earth even settles. You lift a brick, your arms shaking, not from sorrow, but from cold. The sky still weeps above you, softer now, almost apologetic. But the damage is done. The ground is different now, less stable, more dangerous. But no one says it out loud. No one dares. You know what happens to those who question pace. And besides, the wall remembers nothing. It only demands more. So you give it what you have left. You sink to your knees in muck, fingers raw, spine aching, and set another stone down. You press it in place with your weight, feel the water squeeze from beneath it. The slope shifts slightly under your feet, but you ignore it. Because tomorrow the rain may come again, and tomorrow you'll be here again, standing where someone else slid, carrying stone toward a shape that can never be finished. They don't tell you what's in the mix. They hand you a bucket of powder, gray, fine, and bitter-smelling, and you add it to the clay without question. The consistency is a little different, softer, almost greasy. It sticks to your skin longer than sand or dust. When you breathe too deeply, it settles in your throat like smoke. But the mortar holds better somehow. The bricks come out stronger, lighter, easier to carry. At first, you don't think much of it. You've learned not to ask where things come from. Food, water, orders, materials, they arrive without explanation. But one night, Crouched near the edge of camp, you hear two men whispering. One of them worked near the kilns. He says the powder comes from burn pits. Not wood, not waste, bone, hair, flesh, mixed with charcoal. You try to tell yourself it's just rumor, just men trying to scare each other in the dark. But the next day, when you stir the powder into the wet clay, the smell returns. And you know it's true. You wonder who they were. Criminals, maybe. Rebels. Or just the ones who died without enough strength left to bury. It doesn't matter. Their names are gone. Their faces are smoke. What's left of them lives in the wall now, hardened by fire, shaped into rectangles, stacked neatly by hands just like yours. You've touched them. You've carried them. You've pressed them into place with your palms. The ash clings to your fingertips. You wipe it on your clothes. You wash it in the same bowl others drink from. No one says anything. What would they say? It's just another material, another part of the wall. You are building with memory now, with what used to be breath and voice and skin. And though you try not to think about it, the thought follows you. Every time a brick cracks under your grip, you wonder whose ribs were in it. Every time you feel the grit in your teeth after a long day, you wonder if it's dust or something older. The overseers know. Of course they do. They manage the fires. They shovel the remains. Sometimes you see the thin trails of smoke rising from behind the hill long after sunset, and you understand what they mean. It's efficient, they say. No waste, no rot. The wall needs to grow, and the dead no longer need their bodies. You repeat that in your mind when you feel the powder clinging to your sweat. You tell yourself it's just another form of contribution. They were part of this effort in life. Now they're part of it in death. That's what this place does. It takes everything, even what's left behind. But sometimes, when the wind shifts and you catch the scent of burnt hair, it cuts through every rational thought you've tried to build. You look down at the bricks you just finished stacking and feel something cold settle in your stomach. You press harder just to make it stop. And then, just as quickly, you stop thinking about it. You have to. If you allow yourself to care, even for a moment, the weight of it will crush you faster than any stone. So you close your eyes. You breathe shallow. You keep your hands moving. You place the bricks, layer by layer, row by row. You don't speak of the ash. You don't look toward the smoke. And when someone new arrives, coughing from the dust, blinking at the strange texture of the mix, you don't explain. They'll learn, like you did. Quietly, alone. You press the mortar into the cracks, your palms stained gray, your lungs heavier with each hour. You feel the wall grow beneath your fingers, warmer than it should be. You do not flinch. You do not cry. You only work, because the wall needs more. And when there's nothing else to give, it takes even the silence, even the ash, even you. It was the 19th shift without rest when it happened. The air was thick with dust, the kind that coats your teeth and scrapes the inside of your throat. The heat hung low and the stones felt heavier than usual, though no one said anything. You were all moving slower, shoulders hunched further, knees bending too deeply with every lift. And then, out of nowhere, someone began to hum. It was soft at first, like a lullaby remembered from childhood, carried on a cracked and breathless voice. You didn't recognize the melody. Maybe he didn't either. A few heads turned. The guards didn't react. The work continued, but the sound grew. He began to sing, louder now, off-key and desperate, a broken tune spilling from a cracked mind. Then came laughter, sharp, sudden, too wide for the silence around it. It echoed off the half-built wall like something foreign and wrong, and just as quickly, it turned to screaming, raw and wild, a sound you could feel in your ribs. Until finally, there was nothing. He didn't fall. He didn't collapse. He just stopped. Sat down in the dirt and stared at the wall with his mouth slightly open, as if waiting for it to speak back. No one approached him. No one told him to get up. The guards looked at each other, unsure whether to strike or wait, but he didn't move, and that was enough. Eventually, someone dragged him away. Where, you don't know. Maybe to a cart, maybe to a pit, maybe nowhere. By the next morning, his space was filled by another man who didn't ask questions. You still hear the tune sometimes in your head when the wind is quiet and the stones aren't grinding too loud. You wonder if it was a real song or something he invented in the moment, a last attempt to remember something that didn't hurt. You didn't laugh. No one did. Laughter doesn't live here. It rots the moment it leaves your throat. Most don't sing. Most don't scream. They just stop talking, slowly. You notice it in their eyes first, how they begin to drift, lose focus. They look past the wall, past the workers, past the sky, as if seeing something far away. Their mouths go slack. Their hands keep moving, but less precisely, like they're watching themselves from a distance. You see it every day. A man lifting a stone he's already placed. Another dragging a bucket in circles. One just stands there, mortar spilling from his hands, forgotten and hardening. The guards hit them and they flinch, but not like they used to. The body responds. The mind does not. You learn to recognize that stare, the emptiness behind it. It's not fear, not pain. It's what comes after both. A quiet that stretches from the eyes down to the bones. And once it arrives, it rarely leaves. You try to keep it away from yourself. You focus on the rhythm. One step, lift, balance, lower, repeat. You tell yourself stories silently while you work. Half-remembered tales, the names of your siblings, the smell of fields back home. You count breaths between tasks. You chew the inside of your cheek to stay grounded. Anything to keep the silence out. Because you know what happens when it takes hold. When your thoughts drift too far from your body, the wall pulls them in. It replaces them with nothing, and nothing is worse than pain. Pain reminds you that you're still here, still something. But the stare, the slow fade into blankness, is the end of that. And no one saves you from it. No one pulls you back. They just step around you, lift your stone and place it themselves. So you keep your head down. You keep your mind moving. You don't hum. You don't laugh. You just endure. Because once the silence settles behind your eyes, no one speaks your name again. They tell you the wall is for protection, that it keeps out the chaos beyond, the tribes from the north, the raiders and ghosts and wild things. They say it is the shield of the empire, a promise of safety and unity, a barrier between order and disorder. But none of that feels real when your hands are blistered from dragging stone, when your breath comes shallow from hauling someone else's future into place. You don't feel like a defender. You feel like a prisoner helping to seal the door shut behind him. The wall does not protect you. It is not being built for your safety. It is being built with your suffering, and it will serve people you will never meet, in palaces you will never see, who will never once think about the hands buried in its mortar. You are not the citizen it shields. You are the tool that makes it possible. And like any tool, you will be cast aside when you're too worn to lift another stone. You realize it slowly. The men beside you come from villages like yours. They speak the same dialect, wear the same threadbare clothes, carry the same sunburn on their necks. You might have passed them in the market once or fished the same river seasons ago. They're not your enemies, but if they were on the other side of this wall tomorrow, they would be. That's what the wall does. It divides. It tells you where you don't belong. It tells others to stay away. And when you look at it long enough, you start to wonder which side you're even on. You're not sure anymore, because the men giving orders speak differently, dress differently. Their skin is clean, their boots polished. They don't haul stone. They don't eat what you eat. They don't sleep in mud. And when they say "for the empire," they don't mean your village. They don't mean your children. They mean themselves. Sometimes new prisoners arrive. Rebels, they say. Dissenters. Criminals. You recognize the look in their eyes. It's not guilt. It's anger. Defiance. They speak of taxes too high, of soldiers burning their harvest, of conscription that took their sons and never returned them. And then they are here, beside you, helping to build the very wall that will keep their people caged. You work alongside them in silence, not because you don't care, but because you do. Too much. You know the truth behind their stories. You lived it. And still, you stack stone. Still, you press ash into mortar. Still, you carry the weight of a future that doesn't include you. The wall will mark the boundary of a nation, but not your place in it. It will define who belongs and who doesn't. And you will always be the one on the wrong side of the line. At night, when the work is done and the guards retreat to their tents, you lie in the dirt and stare at the sky through a haze of dust and cold. You think of your family, of your home. You wonder if the wall will one day stretch that far. If your own village will be caught behind it, walled off from grain, from trade, from hope. You wonder if your children will be forced to climb it or die trying. And then you close your eyes and try not to think at all, because every stone you place pushes someone like you farther away. Every layer you finish locks the door tighter. You are not building for your people. You are building against them. And you are doing it with what little life you have left. Not out of loyalty, not out of pride, but because the wall does not care, and neither does the hand that placed you here. You wake up with a throat full of gravel. That's how it feels, sharp, dry, heavy, like you swallowed a fistful of dust in your sleep, and it never left. Your first breath scrapes against your chest, your mouth already open from the night's struggle for air. You cough, but nothing comes out except the same old rasp. The others around you stir the same way. No words, just hacks, wheezes, dry heaves. The dust settles on everything. Your blanket, your lips, the inside of your nostrils. Even in sleep, it finds a way in. There is no clean breath here. You inhale and the dust enters with it. You exhale and more rises from your own skin. The ground releases it every time you shift. The wall gives it back every time you strike stone. It clings to your lungs like a second set of ribs, heavier every day, harder to ignore. Even silence is filled with it, even dreams. You try to rinse it out when you can, but the water is scarce and most of it goes to drink. You swish a little in your mouth, spit into the dirt, and taste the same bitterness return seconds later. The dust is patient. It waits in the corners of your throat. It settles behind your teeth. You breathe through your nose, but your nose is always stuffed. You cover your mouth with cloth, but the cloth turns brown before noon. You watch men cough until they bleed. Others develop a rhythm, 3 hard hacks before lifting each stone, a wheeze between steps. No one has a clean voice. Conversations are whispered to save the pain. Yelling is rare. Singing is gone. You begin to forget what clear air felt like, if you ever knew it. You wonder if the inside of your body has changed color, if your lungs now match the same gray as the mortar you slap onto the wall. You imagine them dry and cracked, like clay left too long in the sun. And it's not just the throat. Your eyes sting constantly. They tear without emotion, simply trying to clear the grit that never leaves. You rub them, and the dust grinds deeper. Your vision blurs in the afternoons. Your skin burns where the dust mixes with sweat, rubbing you raw beneath your sleeves and along your belt line. You've seen men lose the ability to speak, not from fear, but from abrasion. Their voices reduced to grunts and gestures. You've seen a man cough so hard he fell to his knees, gasping like a fish out of water, blood at the corners of his mouth. No one helped him up. You just watched, silently, afraid that if you stopped breathing long enough to care, your own lungs might give in next. Even the guards wear scarves when the wind is strong, but not you. You have only your hand, or a scrap of cloth already soaked with sweat and silt. And you still breathe, because you have to. By nightfall, the dust settles again, heavier than before, like a final insult. It coats your dinner, dry rice stuck to the bottom of a cracked bowl. You chew slowly, pushing each bite down with the last bit of water, hoping it sticks to your throat long enough to hold the particles in place. You lie down, knowing that the ground will rise against your cheek, that your first inhale in sleep will be full of the day's remains. You dream in silence, but the dust is there too. You wake with it behind your tongue, like ash. You cough, spit, breathe again, and the cycle repeats. The wall rises, and so does the dust. For every stone placed, another breath is taxed, and you pay it gladly because there is no alternative. Breathing is no longer relief, it is labor. And even rest comes at a cost. There's a moment every time you lift a stone, just before you place it, when you wonder if this is the one that will bring the wall down. Not because it's too heavy or placed wrong, but because nothing here feels permanent. The foundation shifts with every rain. The scaffolding groans with age. The mortar never quite dries the way it should. You've seen entire sections lean overnight, seen cracks form like veins across what was once solid. And still, you build. Still, you stack. Because if the wall falls, you'll be under it. You work beneath it every day, shoulder to shadow, eye to crevice. If even a single row gives way, it won't take long for everything above to follow. Stones tumble fast, and men don't outrun them. You've seen it happen. Bodies pulled out in pieces, faces unrecognizable. A scream, a rumble, then silence. After that, a new layer begins, as if nothing happened, as if the wall didn't just eat another man alive, but the other fear runs deeper. It creeps in slowly, between thoughts, between breaths. What happens if the wall is finished? What happens when your hands are no longer needed, when the last stone is set and the last cart emptied? You're not a builder, not a craftsman. You weren't trained to do anything but carry and bleed and obey. When the wall ends, so do you. Not in ceremony, not in rest, in silence, replaced, dismissed, discarded. You've heard the rumors. Workers sent home in chains, relocated, or simply never seen again. No celebration, no payment. Just the next command, the next assignment, if you're lucky. If not, you're left behind in the very shadow you helped raise, forgotten before the dust settles. The wall is your sentence and your shelter. As long as it grows, you have purpose. As long as it grows, you have a reason to move your feet. You're terrified of being crushed by it. But more than that, you're terrified of what comes when it no longer needs you. So you work with both fears in your chest, one in your ribs, the other in your spine. You test every stone with your fingers before letting go, praying it holds, praying it doesn't tip. But you never pause. Because fear doesn't stop the wall, it only feeds it. You carry bricks like they're filled with both threat and meaning. You press mortar like sealing a tomb. You watch the structure rise with awe and dread, knowing it's taller than it should be, heavier than it should be, but still you add to it. You find a strange comfort in the repetition, in the ache of your joints and the sting in your palms. These things mean you are still part of it, still needed, still moving, and every day it gets closer to being done. Your breath grows shorter. Your hands hesitate, just a little, over each new load. Because with every brick that finds its place, you move one step closer to not having a place at all. At night, when you lie on your back and stare into the shape of the wall against the sky, you wonder which is worse. Dying beneath it, buried in the rubble, nameless and broken. Or surviving long enough to see it complete, only to be cast off, nameless and whole. You picture both ends clearly. One comes suddenly, with the roar of stone and splintered wood. The other is slower, a quiet vanishing, a fade into nothing once the labor ends. And still, in the morning, you rise. Still, you work. Because despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, the wall gives you something solid to hold, something to press your hands against, something to measure your pain by. And so you carry the next stone, your shoulders trembling, your thoughts split between collapse and completion. You are afraid of both, but more afraid of stopping. Because once you stop, there's nothing left to fear. Only the silence that follows. Only the wall standing still without you. In your sleep, you are no longer on the mountain. You're in a small village you barely remember the name of. The air smells like cooked rice and wet earth. You hear your mother calling your name, not to scold you, not to command, but just to check if you're hungry. You turn your head, and there's your sister, younger than she was when you left, laughing as she chases a chicken across the yard. The weight is gone. The ache in your back is gone. Your hands are not cracked. You feel clean. The sky is clear and blue. There are no walls, no stones, no shouting, just breath and warmth and a quiet sense of belonging. You walk barefoot. You feel every bump in the soil, and for once it doesn't hurt. In your dream, no one dies. No one watches you. And when you look down at your hands, they don't shake. They're your hands, not tools, not weapons, just hands. But something pulls at the edge of it. A splinter of noise, sharp and growing. A murmur at first, then louder, like dry wood snapping. You try to stay in the dream. You try not to hear it. You cling to the image of the well, of steam rising from a morning bowl, of birds perched on thatch roofs. But the sound is insistent, closer. It breaks the edges of the dream, and everything starts to dissolve. The village fades, the sky dulls, the warmth slips from your fingers like mist. Then comes the sting, a stick against flesh. Not hard, just enough to wake you, just enough to tell you, it's time. And so you open your eyes to darkness, the kind before sunrise when nothing is fully real yet. You feel the cold before you see anything. You hear someone coughing nearby, then spitting. Someone groans, another gets up with a curse. All of it is familiar. All of it is yours. The dream is gone, and in its place, mud, stone, breath, command. You don't move right away. For a moment you try to hold the dream in your chest, as if by not standing you could stay in it. But it's already leaving you. The names you heard, gone. The warmth, gone. You try to remember what your sister's face looked like, but it slips through like water. Now there's only the brittle ache in your ribs, and the knowledge that today will be the same as yesterday. The stick taps again, this time harder. You rise. You know better than to wait for a third. Around you, others are doing the same. Some blink slowly, some already tying cloth around their feet. No one speaks. Dreams are not shared here. Everyone has them maybe, but no one says so. It's too cruel, too dangerous. To say, I saw my mother, or I tasted pork, or I kissed someone, would only make it worse. Because it's not real. Because the wall is. The wall is always real. And yet, every night, it comes back. Not the same dream. Sometimes it's your house, sometimes it's a festival. Sometimes it's the sound of a drum or the feeling of a breeze through your shirt. But always, it's hope. Small, persistent, soft. It waits for you when you close your eyes, even if just for a moment. And every morning, it dies. Struck down not by violence, but by the simple weight of waking. By the realization that your limbs still ache. That the calluses on your hands have split again. That your stomach is still hollow. And that the wall still looms above you, taller than yesterday. You wonder what will happen when the dreams stop coming, if they ever will. Maybe they're a mercy. Maybe they're a curse. You don't know anymore. You just know that every morning, when the cold hits your chest and the dust coats your teeth, something quiet inside you vanishes, something soft, something warm, something human, and still you rise, because there's no other choice. At some point, the days stopped meaning anything. The sun still rises and falls, but it doesn't mark time, only shifts. You can't remember how long you've been here. Maybe months, maybe more. The calendar in your mind was torn apart by repetition. Morning pain, midday silence, evening collapse. Over and over until everything blurs. You used to count at first. Scratches on stone, whispers with the others. 10 days, someone had said. Then 20. Then someone else died, and no one remembered what the number was. There's no point. Nothing waits for you at the end of the count. There's no festival, no reward, no homecoming. Time has no destination here. Only the wall does. It grows, and you follow, stone by stone, like a shadow that forgets its shape. Even the seasons are strange. Is it summer now? You can't tell. The cold never fully leaves. The sweat never stops. The sky is the same sick color no matter what day it is. So you stop counting. It's easier that way. But there's another kind of counting. One you didn't choose. Fingers, toes, teeth. The tally of what's missing. You know who limps now, who lost a nail to frost, who's down to 7 fingers. Not by names, you've forgotten those, but by shape. One has a crooked walk. One wraps their hand every night, though there's nothing left beneath the cloth. You remember the man who worked beside you with a bandaged stump, and how he tried to grip a basket with the wrong hand and dropped it. No one laughed. No one helped. He didn't ask. And then one day, he wasn't there. No explanation. No body. Just a silence where he used to breathe. Another man took his place that same hour, and the stone kept moving. You try not to look when someone winces. You try not to notice the blood when gloves split open. But you do. You notice everything, because the body is the only clock here. It keeps track for you, in bruises, in swelling, in scars. The worst is when the damage is slow. A fingertip turns black. A toenail peels. A cough that won't go away. You watch as someone tries to ignore it, day after day, pretending their leg isn't shaking, pretending their hand still grips. And then one day, they don't get up, or they fall behind, or they drop a brick, and the guard steps forward. That's the end of it. Sometimes you find yourself imagining which part of your own body will go first. You flex your hands at night, testing for pain. You rub your ankles and count the bones. You feel your breath for tightness. There's a superstition here. Don't say the number out loud. Don't say, "I still have all 10," or "I've gone 3 months without a break." The wall listens, and it punishes arrogance. Instead, you stay silent. You hope quietly. And when you notice someone else still whole, you don't mention it. You just look away, as if not seeing will protect them. It won't. But it's all you can do. And still, you work. Still, you wake and lift and carry and endure. You don't think of time anymore. You don't mark it in days or months or years. You mark it in bodies, in absences, in the sound of someone not coughing anymore, because they're gone. In the widening space where 5 men once stood, now filled by 4. You mark it by the ache in your knees that never fades, by the scar on your palm that splits open again and again. You mark it by how hard it is to remember your own voice, because you rarely use it. You mark it by the way your name has started to sound wrong in your head, like it belongs to someone else, someone with all their fingers, someone who believed in something. But belief is a luxury here. So is memory. So is counting. You let it all go. You focus on the stone. You press your hands into it. And if one day you can't, you hope someone else will take your place without needing to ask why. Sometimes, when the wind dies and the stone settles, you hear it. A sound so faint you wonder if it's real. A whisper, maybe. But not the kind that carries secrets. It's slower, more rhythmic, drifting like mist through the ranks of bodies bent under weight. Someone is mouthing a song, not singing, never singing. Singing is for voices. This is for memory. The melody has no words now. Maybe it did once. Maybe the man mouthing it learned it as a child, by firelight, before he ever touched a brick. But now it's worn down to hums and vowel-less breath. You strain to make sense of it, but you never can. The sound isn't for you. It's not for anyone else either. It's a tether, a way to hold on to something that hasn't crumbled. In a world made of stone, sometimes the only soft thing left is the echo inside your throat. No one ever asks who started the tune. No one joins in. That would make it something communal, something shared. But here, songs are solitary. They're what you use when you're too tired to cry, too hungry to sleep, too cold to care. You've done it yourself. Whispered a tune you barely remember, just to feel your own breath in a pattern. It's a way to remind yourself that your lungs still work, that your mouth still belongs to you, that you're not entirely stone yet. Once, when you murmured a line from an old lullaby, something your mother used to hum, the man beside you turned, and for a second, his eyes softened. Then he looked away. The silence returned, but something lingered. The sound made space for something else. Not hope exactly, just not emptiness. That's the best you can ask for here. Sometimes the guards notice. Sometimes they let it pass. Other times, they don't. You've seen men struck for less than a whisper, as if the memory of music is rebellion, as if melody might remind you that you once had a name, a village, a mother, a future. The wall does not allow that. The wall wants silence. Perfect, obedient, empty silence. And yet, still, the whispering returns. Not often, not loud, but enough to know you're not the only one who remembers. It's not joy. No one sings for joy. There's no place for that here. But grief hums. Loss vibrates in your chest. Regret has its own tempo. And in the dark, when you think you're the last one awake, you hear someone humming two notes, rising, then falling, like a breath caught between what was and what will never be. You've started collecting them, these half-songs, these fragments of sound barely strung together. You don't do it on purpose. They just settle in you, like dust. You remember the way one man always began with the same low note, the one that sounded like mourning, or how another would pause after each phrase, as if waiting for an answer from someone long dead. You carry these pieces the way others carry scars, quietly, invisibly. But they stay with you. And some nights, when the wall looms too tall, when the pain in your joints makes sleep impossible, you hum them back to yourself, not to be heard, just to not vanish. Because even if the wall consumes your name, your face, your body, maybe, just maybe, a tune will outlast you. Not because it's beautiful, but because it was the only thing you whispered when the world wanted you silent. They tell you the wall is for greatness, that it will stand for thousands of years, that its shadow will stretch beyond empires, beyond memory, beyond you. The officials, robed, clean, always distant, sometimes read aloud from scrolls, proclaiming the glory of the emperor, the strength of the chin, the eternal peace this wall shall bring. But you do not see peace. You see mortar under your fingernails and blood on your sleeves. You do not hear legacy. You hear the groan of a man collapsing beside you, and the thud of a stone dropped too soon. They speak of a future, but the only future you know is the next pile of bricks, the next load to lift, the next step before your knees give way. There is no space in your world for destiny, only for orders. You've stopped imagining what comes next. You don't dream of what the wall will look like when it's done. You don't picture children walking atop it, or generals praising it, or scholars studying it. You don't picture anything at all, because your thoughts must be small to survive. Wide thoughts are dangerous. They lead to wanting, and wanting leads to suffering. So instead, you focus on the weight in your arms, on the ache in your spine, on the exact place to place your foot so you don't slip on the mud. You live moment to moment because moments are all that's left. The idea that this toil serves something larger is too far away, too cold, too silent. And even if it's true, it changes nothing for you. The wall will stand, but you will not. A scribe passed by, recording numbers, heads counted, loads tallied, names written. You asked, softly, because soft is safe, what will happen to the records? He didn't answer, just kept walking, his brush scratching quietly. You realized then that even your death will be a line in someone else's report, a tally mark in black ink. Perhaps one day your bones will be found, and someone will wonder who you were. But they won't say your name, because no one will know it. They'll call you laborer, worker, maybe prisoner. They'll say you helped build a marvel, but not why you bled, not how you suffered, not that you once whispered lullabies to yourself in the dark to stay sane. And so you lift and move and place and repeat. You do not think of honor. You do not think of sacrifice. You do not think of history. You think of surviving this day. And when they say this is for the generations to come, you wonder if those generations will ever look back and see you. If they'll see the hands that cracked, the backs that broke, the breath that wheezed through dust-choked lungs, or if they'll only see the wall, clean, proud, silent, a future built on bones with no names carved in stone, just another monument that forgets those who made it. You have long since stopped counting how many days have passed. Time here is not measured in sunrises or moons, but in bricks moved and backs broken. Your body is worn, a vessel that barely responds. The ache in your joints has turned to numbness, and you begin to forget what your voice sounded like when it was whole. Around you, the wall stretches endlessly, winding through mountains, crawling across valleys, rising stone by stone with a hunger that never slows. It grows while men fall. It continues even as names fade. It does not care who builds it. And you begin to realize you were never building the wall. The wall was consuming you. Each time another man falls beside you, from fever or a shattered leg, or a simple misstep on the edge of a cliff, no one stops. There is no mourning, no moment of silence. The work swallows the sound. The body is dragged aside or simply left where it collapsed, and the line moves on. You no longer look down at them. You simply adjust your path. One day it will be you, and someone will step around you in the same way. There are no goodbyes here. There are no last words, only the steady rhythm of stone on stone, breath after breath, until the breath runs out. And still the wall rises. You wonder sometimes what will remain of you. Not your body. You know it will be buried beneath mud, or packed behind the stone, or simply forgotten in the dust. Not your face. It has changed too much to even be recognized. And certainly not your name. You haven't heard it spoken aloud in months. Maybe years. Names are for people. You are not a person anymore. You are a shape in the line. A shadow with a task. A whisper that no one listens to. The wall, however, will remain. It will stand long after your bones have crumbled, long after every memory of your breath has scattered. It will outlast you in every way. And yet, this knowledge brings a strange calm. There is no fighting it. There is no resisting it. There is only the quiet truth. You were here. You laid your hands on this stone. You left behind sweat, blood, pieces of your body in its mortar. And even if no one knows your name, even if history forgets your face, the wall will carry the shape of your labor. It is not pride. It is not peace. It is simply the end of you, stretched into something vast. You vanish into it, and it does not even notice. Even in the silence, there are others. You hear them before you see them. The sharp exhale of a man lifting a stone. The cough of someone who hasn't eaten in a day. The soft rustle of fabric shifting on packed earth. Breaths come in different rhythms, but they create a kind of music, low, steady, reluctant. You don't speak to them. There is nothing to say, but you know them. You know how one of them favors his right leg because the left never healed right. You know the one who hums softly just before dawn, his voice barely louder than the wind. You know the one who scratches his scalp raw, chasing lice he'll never catch. They are as broken as you, and that knowledge, strange and fragile, keeps your mind from cracking completely. You feel the heat of bodies pressed too close in the dark. When the cold comes down from the mountains, it doesn't care who you are. It only seeks skin. You lie in rows, shoulder to shoulder, strangers who have become walls to one another. Some mutter in dreams. Some cry without sound. One man breathes so shallowly you wonder if he's still alive. You reach out, just barely, and your fingers touch the edge of his sleeve. Still warm. Still here. In the morning, you will both rise, though neither of you will say a word. There's no need. The work begins again, and that, in its own way, is your shared language. Sometimes someone sings, not loud, never cheerful, just a thread of melody pulled from some forgotten place. The words are meaningless now, lost to time or grief, but the sound travels like a lifeline. You don't sing back, no one does, but you listen. The tune weaves through the dust and sweat, filling the spaces between breath and stone. And when it fades, the silence feels different, less hollow, as if the sound lingers somewhere in your chest, like a memory you never owned. No one ever asks who sang. It doesn't matter. The voice was yours too. You are not alone. Not truly. Around you, hundreds move as you move, ache as you ache, endure as you endure. They have no names, no histories, no futures, but they are real. You feel them in the tremble of the ground, in the slump of shoulders, in the brief, haunted glance across a pile of stones. And even though no one ever says it aloud, you know the truth. You are seen. Not by gods, not by emperors, but by the ones who suffer with you. In this place without comfort, without hope, there is still something left. A breath, a heartbeat, a presence. It is not enough, but it is not nothing. And tonight, that is what carries you forward. And so the wall continues, long after breath fades, long after names are forgotten. It stretches beyond lifetimes, built not just from stone, but from silence, labor, and the weight of those who were never meant to be remembered. But you were there. And in the quiet of the past, your presence still lingers. Sleep now. You're not alone.